Today we're going to talk about how to analyze a legal issue using what is called the IRAC format. And for those of you that are watching from Law 2, this should be a review from what you learned in Law 1. Probably just watching the first part of the video will be sufficient to jog your memory. And if you had Law 1 just last semester, then you may not even have to watch it at all if you remember how to do it, since we just did it. If you're tuning in from Law 1, I need you to pay especially close attention though, because this is the type of analysis that we're going to do for pretty much every issue from here on out. IRAC is a format that's used in most law schools across the country, and it's also roughly the way that a lot of legal filings are set up. So if you find yourself working at a law firm and you're writing a brief or something like that, it might not follow the exact IRAC format, but it's going to have the basic elements in there. Legal opinions written by judges and their clerks are also set up the same way. So even though this might not be the most exciting thing that we talk about, it's not murder or anything like that. It's really, really important that you pay close attention and ask questions if there's something that you don't understand. You can either send me an email or, like I said, usually it's best, I think, if you put the question right in the Google Classroom so that all of your classmates can see it. Sort of like if we were in class. If you ask a question, everybody else can hear it, and then everybody knows the answer to it. Okay, so what is the IRAC format? This is the basic IRAC format to analyze any legal issue with which you are presented. The first thing you're going to do is tell me what the issue is. You're going to list the elements of the rule. Then the application, and the application is the part that I think is the most important. Whenever I taught this as an actual live class, not from home, I would let you guys use your notes for this, for the rule, so that there's no memorization. Now in law school, you'll probably have to memorize the rules. But when you're talking about the rules, that's just do you remember what constitutes each crime or each civil action? But the application is the really important part, because this is where you show me that you understand how the rules apply to the facts. And then your conclusion is going to be the answer to the question that you put in your issue statement. All right. And then again, when is it used? Whenever you're in law school, this will basically be what your exams are. And when I was in law school, some of our classes were a full year long. We literally had 0 graded assignments. Now you might be thinking, oh, that sounds amazing. I didn't have to do any work. Well, you had to do work to keep up with the class. And if you got called on in a lecture, and you hadn't briefed or prepared the case that we were discussing that day, it was really embarrassing. But in terms of your actual grades, a lot of times you spend the whole year in class and then you get 1 3-hour exam in May, and they give you scenarios and say, what crimes were committed here, or what cause of action can party A bring against party B. And you just write for 3 hours, and it's an IRAC analysis of each issue that comes up. This is also the way that the bar exam is set up. And a lot of states will have either 1 or 2 days of essay writing, and it's writing IRAC analyses of different issues. All right. And then, like I mentioned, you see it in practice as well. Okay, so I'm going to skip over this part for now. We'll come back to that. All right. Here is our issue, okay? And the issue is going to be, and let me back up a little bit here, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. When you guys write your issue, it's the question that I give you. And a lot of students tend to think in terms of what issue means in their like everyday speech. So let's say that you come upon your friend and they're in a really bad mood, and you say, hey, what's wrong? What's the issue? And they say, well, the issue is my mom took away my cell phone because I have a D in math class. Okay. When we say what's the issue here in an IRAC analysis, that's not what we mean. We don't mean like what's the problem. The issue is literally the question you're going to answer. So if I give you a scenario and some crimes are happening, I might say, is party A guilty of robbery? That's the issue. And students tend to mess this part up because they'll say the issue is Party A went into a bank with a gun and held up the teller. All right, that's not what we mean. The issue is, what question are you going to answer in your analysis? When you give the rule is the elements. You are literally copying these off of the slides that I provide for you. Now, here's where it tends to be a little bit counterintuitive, okay? A lot of times when you're in school, teachers want you to put things in your own words, myself included. And I know you guys have seen time after time on assignments, don't just copy it off the internet. Don't just copy and paste from an article. Put it in your own words. Show me that you understand what it means. When we're talking about the rule here, forget all of that. I want the rule in the exact words that I give you. And the reason is, when we are talking about things in the legal sense, it has to be precisely worded. If you miss or change or add even one word, it can change the entire meaning of a word or a law. So if I give you an analysis and I say, what is the rule for robbery? Don't try to give it to me off the top of your head. Go back into the notes that I've posted, pull up the Google slide that has the elements of robbery, and copy it word for word, okay? Application is going to be your chance to show me how the rules apply. And you're going to work through each different rule, each different element, and you're going to show how it applies to the facts. So you might say, there is a taking because the person went to the bank and took the money. There is a threat of force or intimidation because they used a gun to threaten the teller to get it. All right, you're going to work through each element. And then the conclusion is just where you answer the question that you put in your issue statement. So if the issue statement is, was there a robbery? The conclusion will be, yes, there was a robbery, or no, there was not a robbery. It has to directly answer the question, okay? Okay, so now let's go to the example that I skipped ahead and got to ahead of time. Okay, this is a throwback, guys. This is back when Miss Mecchia was Miss Mecchia, and she is now Mrs. Winkworth, for those of you that don't know who she is. Okay, so in this example, we have Mrs. Hollis, Mrs. Freeman, Mrs. Sears, and Miss Mecchia are hanging out at TJHS. Here's another typo. After school one morning. All right, so we're at the school. We're waiting for the kids to arrive. We realize we're running low on supplies. Mrs. Freeman suggests we should break into Office Depot after closing and steal the staplers, paper clips, and line paper, all of the things you need to teach a proper social studies course. We all agree to the plan. Mrs. Sears drives to the Office Depot and spray paints the lens on the security camera so that we won't get caught because the recording won't have a way to pick us up, okay? So the issue, have the 4 teachers committed conspiracy? Guys, this is the issue. The issue is not, the issue is that some of the teachers decided to rob the Office Depot or that Mrs. Sears vandalized something. No, this is the question that I want you to answer. Have the 4 teachers committed conspiracy? All right. Here is our rule. Now, in order to get the rule, remember, you're going to just go into your notes, pull up the notes on conspiracy, and copy it down. And this is the one case that I want you to copy exactly what I have written. Don't put in any personal interpretation. All right. So these are the elements. 2 or more parties agree to commit a crime, and there is an overt action by any person in the conspiracy. The application is the part that I'm going to be looking more closely at here, guys, because I want to know that you can now take those rules and apply them to the factual scenario, okay? So we're going to work through it one by one here. The first element, all right, do we have an agreement? Yes, all 4 teachers agree. Do we have an illegal act? Yes, we are going to steal office supplies from Office Depot. All right, did one party to this agreement commit an overt act? Yes, Mrs. Sears, who is a party, committed an overt act, and that overt act was going to Office Depot and destroying the security camera. All right, so we've worked through each element. Guys, the one thing that a lot of students get hung up on is something that's really obvious. All right, yes, we agreed to steal office supplies, which is illegal. And I've had students not write that, and they say, well, yeah, but that's really obvious that stealing office supplies is legal. I don't care if it's obvious. I want you to tell me that that's how the element is met. If you don't write it down, then I have to assume that you didn't recognize that that was one of the elements. All right. So make sure you write everything down. And then our conclusion is yes, Mrs. Hollis, Mrs. Freeman, Mrs. Sears, and Mrs. Meckia Winkworth can all be found guilty of conspiracy. So again, this conclusion directly answers the issue. Have the 4 teachers committed conspiracy? The 4 teachers can all be found guilty of conspiracy. So it seems pretty simple, but it is something that we're going to practice, and you guys are going to have a chance to look at some of these as we go along here. All right, again, if you have any questions, please post them below. If it's not something you feel comfortable asking in front of the class, you can email me. But we are going to continue using IRAC a lot as we go forward here.